I was 7 years old, I started competing as a high-performance tennis player in BC. By the time I was 13 years old, I suffered a complete burnout. Now, I'm rebuilding my relationship to the sport I once loved, going back to my old coaches and peers as I train for my first tournament in over 10 years. Welcome to the return. During a match on the court, I felt incredibly alone. It didn't always start that way. When I started playing, I loved the competition. I loved the rivalry in the actual match. I love the feeling that you're sparring someone tactically and physically. But then as it grew and as these pressures started building on me, as I saw my tennis as a reflection of others and myself, I started feeling incredibly alone on the court in a way that made me break. Why is tennis a cruel sport?
Oh my God, okay, how long do we have?
Honestly, whenever I think of tennis, almost all I think about is failure.
This game demands a lot.
At its worst, it can become, and this gets back into more of the high performance side, but very stressful.
It's not in any shape or form the fault of the game, but it what makes you face, almost like facing a mirror. And if you do not have a support mechanism, support group that help you, you fall into a big hole.
It's a tournament sport, right? So every week, everybody's week ends with a loss but one player.
Why did I quit tennis as a junior? Because tennis makes you mental.
Burnout's real in tennis. It's there's research that shows that burnout in females is higher, especially in that age range. Probably about, I'm not totally up to date with the new numbers, but from like 13 through 16 is where a lot of females drop out.
She just ignored it completely, stole the set, crushed the other girl. The other girl cried. Classic.
Like you and I pretty much became friends in high school when we were like, you're a high performance girly. And we met in high school and we were like, oh my God, we played each other so many times. You've seen me cry, sob, go through it all on the court, but now we're friends.
Yeah, that's crazy though, because like how you think about like all the fun times that we actually had like on courts when we weren't put in a pressured environment.
Yeah.
And it kind of like made tennis really fun. I think that was definitely some great highlights when we played together, when there was no like, you know, ranking, no points involved, and it was just...
When we played doubles for our high school banner against like random kids from everywhere, that was great.
Yeah, it was kind of like what tennis is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. But it's sad that we can't really create that everywhere.
At its worst, tennis makes me feel like I'm a bad person. It's because when you're on the court and you're missing and you're hitting the net, you're hitting out, you're making dumb mistakes, you can't help but say, why am I making this mistake? Why am I messing up? What I hit this shot yesterday. What am I doing wrong? What have I changed? Did I not work hard enough? Did I not fight hard enough? That girl is fighting harder than me. That girl wants it more. Why does she want it more? Why am I not good enough? And then it leads you to this trail of thought that just leads to, I'm not good enough. I'm a bad person. So at its worst, I feel incapable to do anything, let alone tennis.
We know each other since you chose to play this sport. Your mom chose this facility, and I had the privilege to be one of the coaches that more or less began tennis with you.
Yeah, you were my first, like I started at New West, and I had kind of a coach, but it was more just like a person running the camp. And you were my first actual coach in tennis, my first start.
Good.
Okay.
Is it making
clicking.
the hamster moving right now?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Keep it up.
How did you first start coaching?
the tumble back to coaching here was completely accidental. Again, I needed money. It was very big heartbreak. Stopped playing and didn't want to come to a near a tennis court ever again. And going back to it as a necessity, but getting a training as a coach that enlightens you about how much information there is that had I received, I would have been more successful as a player. And if I am able to translate it, transfer it to other kids, they would be far more successful in life than I got. So that was the bliss and a curse. Yeah. The bliss was, it wasn't that I hated tennis, I just lacked what it could have helped me continue, grow, and be successful later stages of the play. And the curse was a disservice I felt that I got from the coaching that I received that lacked this level of vigor and information.
What does tennis burnout look like for a junior player, and what are the warning signs for that?
Yeah, so tennis burnout can look like a lot of different things. I think a lot of the warning signs for burnout are like a decreased desire to participate, which obviously sounds like common sense, but like maybe you're very used to training, like, I don't know, in the morning, like early morning before school, but then suddenly it's like you start to miss a couple, you start to be like, oh, I don't actually feel well, I don't want to go. Maybe you're not doing your dynamic warm-up before you get on court, maybe you're not doing your stretching after, so it starts with like trying to decrease the amount you're doing it. It can also, a classic warning sign can be when you are playing a match, for example, but like you get really frustrated really early in the match. So like in college, I remember playing a match where a player it was like the third point of the match, and my teammate was playing against this player, and like they missed a volley, and like their reaction showed that like there was a whole lot of baggage with that, right? It wasn't that they were that mad about a volley at 15 all in the first game. And so I think burnout, the signs can be like you're carrying a lot of the frustration with you.
When everyone tells you you're talented and have all this potential to be great, and so many people put that effort and time into you being great, and then you aren't, it's not that you're untalented, because everyone told you you are. It's that you haven't been working hard enough to meet this potential. You haven't been pushing yourself. You are failing yourself. And that feeling that you are failing yourself and everyone else is what feels like you are being a bad human being. I think every tennis player has such a close relationship with perfectionism in tennis. I don't think you'll find a tennis player who isn't a perfectionist. It is a sport that you have to be so focused on so many little things in your body and the respect of your opponent and how your wrist is feeling to get the shot you want. Not to mention where your head is at, how you're breathing through it. So it's a sport where you have to just keep repeating the same action to the point that it's so embedded in your body that there's no other option than it being perfect. I think my relationship with tennis and failure is one that was the hardest thing for me to unlearn. Tennis made me feel like failure was a way to move backwards. It was not something you learned from. It was just more rants, more notes, more things that people are telling me that I knew already. And then after quitting, I learned a lot about how failure is an opportunity to grow, opportunity to learn, and not at all a moral reflection of a person. I thought that to be a good person when I was 13, you had to be perfect. And my motto used to be strive for perfection. And even though you don't achieve it, at least you want to be perfect.
And I talk about this with players a lot. If you're in it for the outcomes, like you're going to be pretty miserable most of the time, because most of the time you're playing tennis, you're training. So like if you train 15 hours a week or 18 hours a week, like you don't have a tournament every weekend, but if you do, like, okay, so you might play a 2-hour match, and then you might win, and then you have to play another match the next day. So you have a couple minutes to enjoy it.
I continued playing after I had wanted to quit without realizing it. I was a kid. I didn't know what burnout was. I didn't know that thing existed. I didn't know that other kids didn't feel this way. I didn't know that other people didn't feel this way. I thought everyone thought this sucked and we just had to do it. I didn't realize kids liked tournaments. I didn't realize they liked going to practice. I didn't realize they liked to train. I thought all of these elements were things we all hated, and maybe when you hit that winner, it's all worth it. So I kept playing because I just felt like there was so much investment in me already. I didn't even want to go pro, but I felt that if I quit now, I'll never reach the potential that everyone thinks I have, and I'll never succeed at what everyone else is telling me I can be. And if I can be great at this, maybe I can be great at other things, but if I quit now, what will I be good at afterwards?
Sorry.
Woo, all good.
When burnout hits, it's like the training can feel like really like heavy, like hard work. And burnout's real in tennis. It's there's research that shows that burnout in females is higher.
Why do you think, as coaches, there is such a high dropout rate for girls in the age range of 12 to 14?
I think during that period, you start to see a lot of your friends, the very few that you're able to make kind of drop off. So it hurts to see them go, and then not many of them will even announce it. It's just kind of like they start to disappear out of your life. So you start to feel a little bit more alone and lone. And your social circle within the sport is vanishing and diminishing the older you get. There's also some confidence issues that come up as well for many girls during those ages, where they start to feel a bit more insecure amongst themselves, especially now that we have to move around and compete with our bodies, and we're using that. So that's when the self-consciousness starts to come out a little bit more, where they may not want to play for these certain reasons. Your friends are all gone. You're feeling very alone on the court. So I think a lot of that contributes to the heavy dropout rate that we see.
No.
What do you think about the fact that you never had a woman as a coach?
Not having a female coach has definitely been kind of sad in that sense, that you don't have anyone that represents you within the field. They don't know, they don't understand what you're going through when you have a bunch of male coaches. The male coaches often don't take a sensitive approach to you. It's they treat you as you're gonna be worked like a dog, and you're expected to comply with zero emotion other than being happy to be here and being grateful.
I had one woman coach my whole career.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a female coach, and I think that sucked a lot. I would have loved to have a strong female coach into my life. In my experience, I haven't seen many male coaches kind of make the same initiative that a lot more female coaches will do. You see a lot more female coaches will take a little bit longer of breaks, where they allow for more socialization amongst the group, where the girls can chat with everybody else and kind of spark those conversations amongst others. So I see a lot more of that coming out of the female coaches' side, where they try and make this feel a little bit more fun and encouraging rather than competing.
In girls' sessions, they have water breaks. Easy, you can turn 5 or 10 minutes to conversations. Looking back, my mentality when I had students and I was coaching as well too, trying to set up those environments and was really important. And not just in the session, but, and this is something a lot of clubs do nowadays too, where they'll have team events, monthly team events or whatever. Well, then we're gonna go, laser tag or bowling, whatever it is. Little things where the entire team comes out and you're no discussions about tennis, no discussions about this, what else is going on. That's really, I think, the biggest part is you need that sense of community, support. Friends is always a big one. I need to feel like I have people that I'm gonna look forward to seeing again. That really makes a big difference overall, and that's what I've seen, at least in the last change in generations of coaches and environments in coach settings, and I should say club settings as well too.
Emotions have a big place on the tennis court. I think it's not, I know people have different opinions on this, but for me, like, I want players to feel their emotions. That's a huge part of playing tennis, is like experiencing those emotions, whether they're happy emotions, sad emotions. And so I'm a believer of like trying to channel our emotions to help us play better tennis. I've seen players that try and mute their emotions, and it often doesn't lead to them playing great tennis, but more importantly, like, they're not having fun. So I think like when I see juniors that, you know, are mostly positive and energetic, but sometimes negative, I'm like, okay, like, they're feeling their emotions, and it's just that battle of like, okay, how can we try and channel this in the best possible way? And then again, like, trying to do it within a nice moral compass where it's like we're still being good role models at the same time.
There's a difference between winning and losing the point. Boris won the point. Doesn't make me upset because he earned it. When I shank that winner, that's me losing the point. Makes me want to cry. I think in those moments I'm upset, I'm just thinking, I missed, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I'm bad.
So there's 3 types of self-talk. There's the negative self-talk, which you talked about. There's positive self-talk. And then there's neutral, or it's called instructional or neutral, which would just be like next point, or like serve wide, forehand cross, right? So it's just like you're being instructional to yourself. The positive and negative, we kind of know what that is. A lot of workshops that I run on self-talk, people expect me to say, hey, like, all of us should have positive self-talk. But that's not actually the case, because typically, like, if I were to ask you, like, think about some of the best tennis matches you've ever played, how much self-talk were you using?
Barely any.
Barely any, right? So like, typically when we're playing our very best, we're in a state of like no mind, which is when nothing's really going on. That doesn't mean that we're low energy, but it just means that we're not busy in our mind. So I try and talk to athletes, like, self-talk is used to try and get us into no mind. So if I'm using negative self-talk, maybe using my negative self-talk is getting me back to where I need to be. Maybe it's not. So for example, I hear a lot of people talking about certain players, like, for example, Andy Murray back in the day, and even a bit still, like, quite negative to his box, right? Talking to his box a lot, letting off that steam. How can you be a professional tennis player, one of the best ever, and you're yelling at your box and you're being so negative? I have a feeling that Murray is doing that because it's effective for him, for his performance. If it wasn't, by now, he would have fixed it, right? And so I think trying to understand, like, does negative self-talk help you, or is it just what you've been doing? A lot of tennis players use negative self-talk because that's just what it's natural for them to do, but it doesn't necessarily help them. But for those that it does help, it might help get the steam off, and then you can focus on trying to be in no mind, which is when it's like, you might use some neutral self-talk. Okay, I'm going to serve body here, and if I get a forehand, I'm going to go there. Okay, next point, come on. And then no mind. Then nothing's going on. And so I think that would be my advice with the self-talk, is see self-talk as a strategy to get you into no mind when you play your best. Does that mean that when you are in no mind, you're going to play great every time? No, but you're more likely to play better in no mind than if you weren't.
Oh. What do you think your role is as a coach when you see a kid suffering and playing the sport?
Reach out. You can't let them be. They're not going to figure it on their own. It's a child, for God's sakes. But it's important what you do once you reach out. I believe utmost honesty is the first indicator of you respecting that individual. You can't lie to them. And they know when you lie to them. Just for the sake of making them feel good at that moment. You can't sacrifice the opportunity to help them gain something from that moment, from that misery, from the obstacles they're facing, because it's not the last time they're going to be there in their life. Forget tennis. So I see it as an opportunity for them to grow, for them to develop the capacity to make better decisions, to hone the skills that can help them on court and off the courts. So you do reach out, but you need to reach out with enough honesty, but with enough care, wrapped with enough compassion and kindness that you can help them understand, why is this bitter? And maybe it's not all that bad after all. And then there's a bitterness general in the life experience. What do you do with it? Shifting perspectives, transforming a person's feelings to something of self-confidence, self-worth, and the desire to get up and continue and grow is the most meaningful opportunity for any relationship, especially for a coach. And I think that's, in a nutshell, the essence of being a coach. And I always viewed it as well that way. I've never cared about your forehand as much as I cared about what's going on in your heart and what's going on with your mind and what's going on in your emotion. Because no tennis balls and tennis rackets and tennis courts will not sit and cry if every tennis player in the world today quit tennis. But every tennis player that quits tennis has done a lot of crying then, prior, then, and after. So it's that individual, far more important than their shots, than their game, that we should, I always try to see and respond and help.
The struggle with tennis, right, is that it's a very interesting and fascinating and exciting sport, but you're all alone on the court. And when you're all alone on the court, but also feel all alone off the court, that is extra isolating. When you're on the court, all those off-court pressures are still on there. So when you're playing, and I'm just imagining this is how you felt. You aren't just playing to, have a cool shot or an amazing point or to strategize and like to beat that, to win the point. You were playing to represent where you're coming from, to kind of justify your presence in this space. And that is, I can imagine, was very isolating.
Yeah. Hearing you say that kind of made me emotional.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Whew.
Give me a minute.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah. I don't think I thought you saw me that way. I don't think I knew you saw me. So it was emotional knowing that you did.
I always saw you.
Yeah.
I've always been very protective of you.
I know you have. Which is incredible. Thank you. I felt very lucky to have you as a brother during that time. Do you think it was a good idea for me to play high performance tennis?
I don't think I can answer that, Noah. I think you are still trying to figure that out, to be honest.